Okay. Able to see? Able to see?
Yes, ma'am.
We are in the college. So fourth hour, we buses will leave by 12:30. So I'll wind up early. Okay. So in the last class, we were seeing about dining philosopher problem. Uh, Dining philosopher problem, and we have seen how to solve this. So there were five tables, five plates, and five forks, and we have solutions for this also. We were having five, and we have seen how to solve this. And one approach was use purchase five more forks was one solution, and one more was train the people who are sitting to have there with only one fork. That's what we have seen in the last class. So now, and we have just started with the memory management, and we have seen what is address binding. So in address binding, we were having a compile time, load time, and a execution time. So what is compile time? Compiling, if we know at a compile time what the absolute time the program is going to execute. Load time, so how much time your program is taking from main memory to CPU to load the program. That's what load time. Then execution time, so how much time your processor is taking to execute your program. That's what the execution time. And we have seen about a logical versus a physical address space. What is logical? Where the address of the CPU where your program is residing is called as a logical space. And what is physical space? The space or address where the program is residing is called as a physical address. So that's what a physical address and a logical address. So then what is compile time and load time address binding method? Generate identical logical line. Sometimes it may be same. Sometimes suppose your address, suppose let us take, there are three floors building, three separate buildings are there. Some block 1, block 2, block 3. And they've started block 1 as 100 and it keeps going. Block 2 also they've started with 100. Maybe the house number is same, but the block numbers are different. Then we may say the house numbers are same. That's what here load time and address time, sometimes it may be same. Okay, that's what we have seen. What is a compile time? The source code, whatever you have typed, is compiled by a compiler. Then object module, linkage editor, load module, and a loader. That's what all these work going on is called as a load time. And the last one is a execution time. What time is taken by the processor to execute your program. And we have seen how the memory management is being done. And this is what we have seen, what is logical address and what is physical address. Logic.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we can see only the
Yes,
folder screen, ma'am, not the PPT.
you're not able to see the PPT. That's what I
Yeah,
asked you.
ma'am.
Okay. I have opened the PPT. I'll share 1 second. Okay. Okay. Now you're able to see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have seen about these compile time, load time, execution time, and we have seen a logical versus physical address. And we have seen what is a compile time, what is load time, what is execution time. And we have seen, that's what here you can see, dynamic relocation using the relocation register. That is CPU, so logical address, and physical address. Logical address where the memories or the program resides in the CPU is called as the logical address. And the program resides in main memory, and that particular address is called as a physical address. And dynamic loading, so dynamically how your program is getting loaded, we have seen, and we have seen the advantages of the dynamic loading. We've seen a dynamic linking and shared libraries. So today we start with the swapping. So what is this swapping is? So your program, before we start anything, it will be is stored in the main memory, and whenever you want to execute, that program will be fetched from a main memory to the CPU temporary memory for execution. So that's what here the process need to be in memory to be executed. Yes. So the process need to be whatever is there in the memory to be executed. A process, however, can be swapped temporarily out of memory to a backing store. So you can see in this diagram, main memory is there and you have a backing store. What is that backing store? Is a temporary memory. You are fetching data from a main memory and you are keeping your content in a backing store. Backing store is a temporary one where you fetch and keep back. So when do you require backing storage? Whenever you are using the CPU algorithm, something like a round robin or priority. Suppose if one process having a high priority enters the CPU, whichever current executing in the CPU was having a lesser priority, then it should be permitted from the CPU execution time, and the higher priority one should be given the CPU time. So when it is executing, where that particular process should reside, that will be residing in a backing store. So that's what here a process need to be in a main memory to be executed. A process, however, can be swapped temporarily out of memory to a backing store and then brought back into a memory for continued execution as shown in the figure. You can see in this how this process 1 is there, process 2 is there. So process 1 was executing and it was having a less priority compared to process 1. Suppose let us say process 2 is your principal and process 1 is like ordinary faculty. When ordinary faculty is taking a class, a principal entered to the class, then the staff has to stop his teaching, then give for the principal. So that's the same way here you can see P1 is staff. So he was doing his class. Because principal entered to the class, staff has to stop his teaching and give the mic to the principal. That's what the same way here, swap in and swap out. Swap out because staff should come out, and swap in because principal has come, he'll be given a chance for the speaking. So that's what is called as a swapping. So normally a process that is swapped out will be swapped back into same memory space that is occupied previously. So now the same thing here, suppose after principal goes back from the class, what we have to do again, staff has to continue the class. Staff has to continue the class means bring it back to the CPU. That's what here, back to the class. This restriction is decided to the method of address binding. So how this address, so now it has the process which is there in CPU execution has to be, may not be in the same memory I'll say. I may, because I have fetched my complete memory which was in 100. Suppose let us take one example. You have stored your Java program in a place called 100 and you have fetched that program which is there in 100, taken that program and given for the process execution. And in the 200, there was one more program and that was having higher priority. You are giving back that second program to the processor. And the first program will not come back and reside in 100. It may reside somewhere else. So that's what is called as a address binding. If the binding is done at assembly or at load time, then the process cannot be moved to a different location. So suppose you take that address bind or dynamic binding. So when we are doing the array, malloc calloc, we are using malloc and calloc when we are doing the dynamic binding, and we are using an array if we are doing a static. So what is that static will be doing? Static array will be fixed. Then in that case, we cannot switch these addresses. That's what will be the problem. If the execution time binding is being used, then a process can be swapped into a different memory space because the physical address are computed during the execution time. So this is what the execution time will be taking back. Swapping requires a backing store The backing store is a fast disk. It must be large enough to accommodate copies of all memory images for all users, and it must provide direct access to these memory images. So now suppose swapping means what? Bring the memory program from memory, give to the CPU. And when CPU is asking for the input value from keyboard, that program will be kept somewhere, another program will be executing. So this is what is called as a swapping. The system maintains a ready queue consisting of all process whose memory images are on a backing store or in a memory are ready to run. Whenever the CPU scheduler decides to execute a process, it calls the dispatcher. So the dispatcher checks to see whether the next process in the queue is in the memory or not. So suppose whatever the you want to execute the program, whether it is there in the queue or not. If it is fine, then we call it as a dispatcher. If not, and there is no free memory region, the dispatcher swaps out a process currently in a memory and swaps in the desired process. It is then reload register or normal and transfer control to the selected process. So this whatever we are switching from main memory to CPU after a completion back from CPU to a main memory, this what is called as a swapping. So the context switching time in such a swapping system is high. If we want to swap a process, it must be idle. That was with the switching. So now we move on to a continuous memory allocation. So suppose you think that Akash wants some memory, Mithili wants some memory, and Bhavisha wants some memory. So then how the free space will be done is, initially there was all free spaces will be at one place. That we are calling it as a hold. When Akash asks some memory, that will be removed from free space and given to Akash. And Mithili asks some more space, that will be given to Mithili. The same way, Bhavisha will ask some more. So if it is available for Bhavisha, then only we can give whatever she asked. If it is not available, then what we have to do? We have to wait till Mithili and Akash gives us back the memory. So that's what here, contiguous memory allocation. The main memory must accommodate both the operating system and the user various user process. So not only what the operating system has to do, whatever the program we have taken, along with that, how many users are there? We have to. So now we can see in a Google Meet right now how many of you are there online. So that is what you have to accommodate. That's what you can see. If it is one-to-one, there are even online tools where we can use, but they are restricted. But in Google, how many people can access at one particular time? It is till 250 people can accommodate or can be added at a Google Meet. So that's what here, even the main memory, both the operating system and the various user process. We therefore need to allocate different parts of main memory in a most efficient way possible. This is done using a contiguous memory allocation. We usually want several processes to reside in memory at the same time. So what we do, continuously we want to allocate the memory. Hence, we need to consider how to allocate available memory to the process that are in the input queue waiting to be brought into the memory. So what we do, so in a queue, some memory is there and that should be bought. In the continuous memory allocation, each process is contained in a single continuous section of memory. That's what in continuous memory, what it is being done is, so whatever is there completely, it will be in a one section. So for one section, we have to give a protection. Before we move on a continuous memory allocation, we should know what is memory protection. So before discussing memory allocation, we need to discuss about the issues of memory protection. So what is memory protection? So whatever I'm keeping the files. So today, suppose if I send you a operating system 1 unit, you will be keeping in your memory or hard disk. So by tomorrow, if you open, if it is not there, then what? It will be problem. So it should be saved. It should be protected. That is a place where we require a memory protection. So memory protection is to protect the OS from our users and to protect users from the one another. Same way, what is memory protection? Memory protection, not only you have to protect the users, but also the operating system files. Same way you can see, some operating system files are also there. By chance, if you delete some operating system files, your operating system will not work or it will not boot only. So for that also there should be a protection. So no one should be in a position to delete the system files. So in that case, we have to protect them. Not only that, no other person should take your data. So that's what memory protection comes, and protect from one to another. We can provide this protection by using the following register. So to do this protection, the operating system is using the register, some special types of register called as a relocation register. Contains the value of the smallest physical address. What is physical address? The main memory address is a physical address. So that relocation register. So now suppose whatever is there in memory, we have taken that program into a small register to execute the program. Sorry, yeah, that relocation is required. So limit register contains the range of logical address. So limit, so we know that CPU registers are small compared to main memory. For example, let us consider one example where relocation is 13040 and limit equals to 7400. So which with the relocation and limit register, each logical address must be less than the limit register. So here always what is the problem? That's what here it says, what is the limit? Suppose you think that Akash has been given a limit of 10 bytes of memory, and the same way Mithili also given 10. So the limit will be given for you to consider. So take the same example. So per day, how much GB of data internet provider is giving you free? They'll give you for one day only this much. You can use only this much of your internet, your browsing data. Beyond that, if you use the data, that data will not be allowed for. That's what here the limit is also considered. The memory management unit maps the logical address dynamically by adding the value in a location register. This mapped address is sent to memory as in the figure 3.4. So hardware support for relocation and limit register. So how this hardware is supported for limiting the register. Now you can just see in this diagram. So logical address means what? CPU. What is the physical address? Memory. So what is a limit? So if the memory what you want, whether it is available or not available. If it is available, that's what here less than. So if the required memory is less than what you have asked, then it will not be given. If it is there, if it is more, then the relocation register will be given, or else it will not be given. That's what here this diagram says. Same way how you say if condition, if A is less than 0, print A, else print B. That's what you will be doing in a largest of 3 number program. Same way here, if register is, if the register value, whatever you want to store the data is lesser, then only it will be given. If not, no. When the CPU scheduler selects a process for execution, the dispatcher loads the relocation and limit register with the correct value as a part of the context switching. Because every address generated by CPU is checked against these registers. We can protect OS and user program and data from being modified by this running process. So next we move on to memory allocation. So allocation means what? So now take, you have a timetable. How how many days we have? 5.5 Saturdays, half day. So then how many hours each staff or each subject is being allocated? So 4 hours. Do 4 hours given for one staff? No. So one day, 1 hour, one staff, next hour, next staff. Like this it is allocated. Allocation means giving some time. Same way for memory allocation also we have a problem. One of the simplest method for memory allocation is to divide memory into several fixed sized partition. So what you have done? So suppose let us take you have purchased a new laptop. When you have purchased a new laptop, there'll be hard disk where it will be free. Then they may ask you when you're purchasing which type of operating system you want, whether Windows, single user or multi-user, what type of operating system you want, you'll be loading. So generally, when we purchase anything, C drive is fixed for your operating software files. D drive, user files, your movies, whatever you want, D and E. Nowadays, even you can see one more file where backup is being kept in a separate memory, so that if something goes wrong with the C drive, with the help of backup file, you can restore back your operating system. That's how the memory is being partitioned. Same way here, fixed sized partition. Each partition may contain exactly one process. In this multiple partition method, when a partition is free, a process is selected from the input queue and is loaded into a free partition. So multiple partition, each partition may contain exactly one process. In this multiple partition method, when a partition is free, a process is selected from the input queue and is loaded into a free partition. When the process terminates, the partition becomes available for another process. This method is no longer in use. So that's what here, this is just an explanation about how the memory allocation is being done. So fixed size partition, that's what you fix. C drive is this much memory, D drive is this much memory, E drive is this much memory. Means you're fixing how much size each drive you want. That's what is called as a fixed size partition. So each partition may contain one process. Suppose you think that you have 4 processors and each processors can be assigned for a separate partitions, whatever you have done. When process terminates, the partition becomes available for another process. This method is no longer in use. So the another method in generalization of a fixed partition scheme, here the OS keeps a table indicating which part of memory is available and which are occupied. So that's what if we click on your my computer, you'll be knowing how much is free in your C drive, how much is free in D drive, how much is free. So how you will be keeping track? There will be one table where it will says you how much is free memories available. That's what whenever we open our D drive or E drive, I'll just show you. So whatever the stars I have saved the screen. How did I save? Okay, because this one is this laptop I'm using for background sir, so I don't want to go to his personal thing. So that's what here it is, how it is divided. So here OS keeps a table indicating which part of memory are available and which is occupied. Initially, all memory is available for all users. So initially what we have is every complete memory is free. So and that is considered as one large block of memory, and that we are calling it as a whole. When the process arrives, and needs a memory, suppose one program is there and where you want a memory, we search in this whole large process whether can I store it. Yes, you can store, then that much memory is given for the particular process. If we find one, we allocate only as much memory as is needed, keep the rest available to satisfy a future request. At the given time, we have a list of available block size and input queue. So that's what here Akash, suppose you assume that I have a 100 GB of memory. Out of 100 GB, Akash asks me 20 GB. I'll check whether I have 100, whether is it fine, can I give? Yes, it now available free is 100. Akash asks 20, so I'll give for Akash. Now next, Mithili comes and she asks me 100 GB. Right now, because I have given already for Akash 20, right now available is 80. But Mithili comes and asks me 100. Can I give? No. Until unless Akash returns me back, I cannot give Mithili 100. So that's what here. The same way here, the whole is complete available memory. So in general, a set of wholes of various sizes scattered throughout memory at any given time. Suppose I say this much, this is a place where Akash has to reside, first bench. Mithili, I'll say you have to reside in a second bench, and Bhavishya has to reside in a third bench. And now what I will do is, Akash completed his job. and one more person comes here and sit. Then what we do? So I may say that because 10 people can come, because first row is Akash was sitting. I cannot give to other people until unless Akash completes, because it is scattered. So suppose you think that now Bhavishya has completed, but still Mithili has not completed. Then what? This space is free. Mithili still, she is doing her work. Bhavishya completed. So wherever is free, we have to collect. When a process arrives and needs memory, the system searches this asset for a hole that is large enough for this process. If the hole is too large, it is split into two. One part is allocated to the arriving process, another is returning to a set of holes. So if I have very big thing, then what we have? So for any classrooms, how we have we have two doors, one for entry and one for exit. Means what? If huge people are coming at one time, the door is not sufficient. That's what same way here also. There are two things are done. One part for allocating for arriving process, one more part for returning. So when a process terminates, it releases its block of the memory when it is placed back in a set of holes. Two adjacent holes are merged to form a large hole. Suppose now Akash was first bench, Mithili was second bench. Both of these two people have completed. Then what I can do, I'll combine whatever Akash space was there, what was Mithili was space was there, I'll combine both together. So that's what, if it is side by side, then we can combine. If it is not side by side, then we cannot combine. That's what here. To satisfy the request of size n from a list of free holes, we have a dynamic storage allocation problem. So what is dynamic storage allocation problem? So there are following algorithm. First one is first fit. So now Akash is the first person to come and he asked me 20 GB. I gave him. So now I was having 80 GB. Now best fit, wherever is first fit means starting you have checked everything. So Akash has come, I'll give him first bench. He sat in the first bench, then first fit. Then next, suppose you think next day, Akash comes 10 minutes late to the class and all others have sat in the class. So wherever free seat is available, he will go and sit there. That what is that? Best fit. And worst fit. Suppose you think that class was for 60 people, all 60 have come. Akash came late and there is no space to sit in. Then what is the option? I'll make him to stand. That's what here worst fit. That's what best fit, first fit, best fit, and a worst fit. Allocate the first hole that is being enough. Best fit, allocate the smallest hole that is big enough. We must search the entire list. If the list is not ordered by the size, worst fit, allocate the large hole, largest hole. Best fit and first fit are better than worst fit with respect to time and storage utilization. First fit is faster. All three algorithms suffer from external fragmentation. First, we should know what is this external fragmentation. So external fragmentation means a process are loaded and removed from a memory. There may be multiple holes. External fragmentation exists when enough total memory space is there to satisfy the request, but it is not continuous. So what is this external fragmentation is? So Akash sat in the first bench, Mithili sat in the second bench, and Bhavishya sat in the third bench, and one more person sat in the fourth bench. So then what we are doing, Akash completed his work. Mithili has not completed, she is in second. Bhavishya completed. Now, I gave 20 for Akash, 20 for Mithili, 20 for Bhavishya. So now, one more person comes and he says he wants 60. 60 space to store his program. And I have 20, 20, 20, there, here and there. But it is not continuous. Then I cannot give, I cannot say yes, because still Mithili is not completed. So this is what is called as a external fragmentation. So what is fragmentation is, sometimes the size of the hole is much smaller than the overhead required to track it. Hence, normally physical memory is divided into a fixed size block. So that's what I told. What is physical memory? Physical memory means your hard disk. So hard disk, how it is divided? It is divided into fixed amount. So your C drive is for some GB, your D drive is for some GB, your E drive is for some GB, means fixed. So 20, 20, 20, you would have divided like that. That's what is called as a fixed size blocks. So sometimes the memory allocated for a process may be slightly larger than what it requires. Such a difference is known as internal fragmentation. So what is internal fragmentation? We'll see with the example. For example, suppose if the physical memory is divided into blocks of 4 bytes. Suppose you think that 4 bytes we have divided, and the process arrives and says that I want 6 bytes memory, because we have divided a physical memory into 4. Then what we can do? 2 4 blocks I can give. In 2 4 blocks, how much is total? 8. 8 we have given for 6. 2 more is extra, and where it is not used. So this is also having a disadvantage. This is a problem with the internal fragmentation. Then it will be allocated with the 2 blocks. Hence, the total allocation is 8 bytes, leading to 2 bytes of internal fragmentation. So one of the solution to the external fragmentation is compassion. So what is this compassion? Shuffling of memory content to place all free memory together is one of the largest block. So now suppose you think that Akash was there in the first bench, and second bench Mithili was there, third bench Bhavishya was there, and fourth person will come. Where he has to sit? He has to sit in a fourth place. Next person comes, he should sit in 5th place. That is better. Or shifting everyone for the next places is better. Fixing at one particular time is better. That's what here compassion means. It will be difficult for shifting a program from one place to another place because it is free. This will become a problem. But compassion is possible only when the relocation is dynamic and is done during execution time. So that's what here we have 2 types of execution. One is static and another one is dynamic. Static means what? Array. So you will be fixed. You'll be saying that this much memory I require for my array to store my data. So that's what fixed. Dynamic, at the time of execution you will give. So Kelloc and Malloc will be doing that. That is, if the relocation is static, we cannot apply this technique. Another solution for external fragmentation is to permit logical address space of a process to be non-continuous. Non-continuous, that's what, it is not continuous, so it will be difficult. To solve this problem, we have 2 more options. This allows a process to be allocated physical memory whenever it is available. To do so, 2 techniques are there. One is paging and another one is a segmentation. So then what is paging? These techniques are discussed in the following section. Paging is a memory management scheme that permits the physical address space of a process to be a non-continuous. Paging avoids the problem of fitting the varied sized memory chunks into a block backing store. So what is this paging is? We'll come back. Paging is commonly used in the nowadays whatever the operating system is available. It is implemented in the hardware as well. So what is the basic concept of paging is? Basic method. The physical memory is broken into fixed size blocks called frames. What is this physical memory? The memory what you have, they are broken into a fixed size. What is that is called as a frames. And what is logical memory is also broken into a blocks of same size called as a pages. So what we are doing, we have 2 types of memory. One is logical and one is physical. What is physical? Your hard disk space. And what is hard disk space? Memory. And what is a logical memory? It is a CPU memory, temporary memory. So now your hard disk is divided into fixed sized blocks, and that we are calling it as a frames. And the same way, your CPU also is divided into blocks. Those are called as a pages. When a process is to be executed, its pages are loaded into 8 any available memory frames from a backing store. The backing store is divided into fixed sized blocks that are of the same size as the memory frames. The hardware support for paging is illustrated in the figure. We'll see how we are doing it, this paging. Every address generated by the CPU is divided into two parts. One is page number, that stands for P, and page offset. So the page number is used as an index into a page table. The page table contains the base address of each page in a physical memory. The base address is combined with the page offset to define a physical memory address, that is to send the memory unit. So that's what here you can see. The paging model of the memory is shown in the figure. The size of a typical is a power of 2. Always the size will be power of 2. Logical address space is 2M. So that's what you can see in this diagram, paging the hardware. Okay, so I'll stop here. So we'll continue in the next class.